the thing. There's Litecoin. There's going to be thousands of cryptocurrencies. I've asked this question, poor viewers. They've heard me ask this question now for a full week on straight to nearly every expert that we have on. If there are going to be so many cryptocurrencies and some are actually better than Bitcoin at doing certain tasks, why does Bitcoin in and of itself have any value?
I think that is a great question. And really, you have to go back and think about money and why money has value. And the answer is because people think it does. Bitcoin's valuable because people have decided that Bitcoin is valuable. And that could be for many different reasons. Maybe they think it's convenient that you can exchange it digitally. Maybe they like the fact that there's no company or country behind it. It's pretty decentralized. But really, when we look at these things, you have to understand that there is a community behind them. There are developers and there are people who are really passionate about them.
I get that it's a fiat currency like the US dollar. I totally get that. But there's only one US dollar, and the supply of it is controlled by the Federal Reserve. Cryptocurrencies seem like there can be thousands of them created by countries all over the world. So I don't understand how they retain value.
Well, I think they retain value because some of them are more well-known than other ones, just like websites or newspapers or anything like that. And, you know, Bitcoin isn't really a fiat currency. It isn't controlled by any country. And a lot of these things aren't controlled by countries. They're controlled by people.
Charlie, what is moving the price of Bitcoin and Litecoin? What's the fundamental that's underlying it? And is there any reason to believe that you believe it can't come down just as quickly as it's gone up? Charlie? Maybe we lost Charlie. Neha, I'll throw that one to you. Is there anything in the way these cryptocurrencies are moving that tells you what's fundamentally driving them, and if there's any reason why they can't come down as quickly as they've gone up?
I think it's absolutely true that they can come down as quickly as they've come up. To me, Bitcoin, it could be worth $0 in the future. It could be worth $1 million a coin in the future. We just don't know. What's really exciting here to me is the underlying technology. Digital currencies are really powerful. They change the way that we interact with money, with financial instruments, with the stock market. It's really a fundamental change, just like the way that the internet changed the way that we trade, the way that we consume news and information. I think this technology is going to change the way we deal with money. So that's really, really powerful. That's an incredibly powerful concept. And will it be Bitcoin that does that? That's a great question. As you pointed out, there are thousands of these things, and they're all different, and they're all experimenting with different technologies.
Charlie, just to kind of build on that question a little bit, is there a way in the future where we might just distinguish between the promise of the technologies underlying Litecoin or Bitcoin or any others as a software protocol, as a new way of doing business, from the value of the coins themselves? I mean, are those two things linked in some very linear way, or may they not have very much value as currencies, but yet the technology can be successful?
I think right now, both Bitcoin and Litecoin, the value is linked very closely to the technology. So as people believe that cryptocurrency has value, they will buy the coin and the price will go up. I think in the future, I mean, there will only be a handful of cryptocurrencies that are worth much value, I believe, and that will be used for daily transactions. Because the currencies have network effect, so there won't be able to support that many different currencies that have value. But the technology itself is very powerful. So there will be tokens that use this technology that may not actually have real value, but it's providing a lot of value for when people use it.
Neha, it seems to me that a lot of people are buying into Bitcoin, Litecoin, what have you, for the wrong reasons right now, because they believe the value that they put into it is going to be increased, I guess, by other people coming in and demand going up, when in fact, if these are supposed to be used either as stores of value or as means of transacting more seamlessly, that's not why people are buying into them. Is that fundamentally an issue here, and is it a danger at some point for the adoption of these for what they were meant to do?
Yeah, you know, a lot of people in my communities are asking me how to buy Bitcoin. And to be honest, it worries me a little bit because these aren't people who've necessarily evaluated the technology, who understand what's going on. That said, I am really excited about the potential of this technology. So in some sense, I think it could be really, really powerful, and it could change the way that we transact today. So a little of both, I'd have to say.
Charlie, you mentioned that Litecoin is meant to help with the payment systems. I'm trying to understand this technology. If people start to use Litecoin or blockchain a lot, who loses? Like, what companies would you avoid because you know that their product line is no longer going to be usable because people switch over to blockchain?
I think the whole cryptocurrency will eventually be used as real money. So I don't think any company is really being threatened by cryptocurrency, but more so like the dollar may eventually be threatened by cryptocurrency. That's my opinion.
Wow,
I don't know.
That's
not
you're
even
a true
Western
believer.
Union. I mean,
Yeah.
you're voting for the dollar, not. All right.
Well, I think cryptocurrency, Bitcoin and Litecoin, their real power is that they are insensible money. So I think that gives it a lot of value, and that's something that we've never previously had. Payments that's not able to be censored by a third party like a government or a company.
Right. Okay. We've gone into the deep end here. Neha and Charlie, thank you so much. Appreciate it. I don't know if you have anything or not.
Country, barely above zero, and other countries below zero. What do you think the consequences of all that is?
Well, the consequences are huge because we've distorted market signals and we're causing all sorts of what I would call misallocation of resources.
Like Bitcoin, or is that unrelated?
No, it's not unrelated at all. Bitcoin, art, wine, equities, credit, you name it, everything is one way up, and there are huge distortions taking place. And it's all in the name of this 2% inflation target. And when you get a misallocation of resources, it really hinders growth over the longer term. Let me give you an example. Last week, there was a company called Steinhoff.
That's the company that's the parent of Mattress Firm in the U.S. now.
Yeah, this is a South African firm. I was lucky enough to be short the stock because someone was kind enough to explain to me that these guys might be crooks. There was fraud at best when you look what was going on. It's a huge roll-up. And they buy this mattress company in the U.S. for 100% over where it was trading. They're borrowing money, big roll-up, big credit. And guess why they're able to issue all this debt? Because the ECB is buying it. Of a company that half the street knew was a fraud and is going to go bankrupt. Now, Mario Draghi would tell you, no problem. We're making money overall in our portfolio. The fact that we lost 150, 160 million on these bonds, it comes out in the wash. The point isn't whether the ECB is making money. The point is they are keeping crooks and zombie companies alive. This is exactly what Japan did for 20 years. It hinders long-term growth. Companies like this should not be walking around borrowing money. That's kind of where we are today. You see what's going on in Bitcoin.
Do you own any cryptocurrencies?
I don't own any. Obviously, as a trader, I should have, but I only trade what I know. What I do know is it takes the same amount of energy to do one Bitcoin transaction that it takes to power 9 homes in the U.S. By 2019, it'll take up half the energy in the entire United States to run the Bitcoin network.
Sounds like the utility companies are a buy.
Well, I find it interesting that most of the people in Bitcoin are climate people. They're West Coast people. I don't quite get the connection. We've got this rogue currency that we're all going to support that is destroying the climate in some extent, but whatever.
So you're not going to take a position on whether Bitcoin is going to go up to 100,000 or 1 million or whatever the... I mean, if we're talking about bubbles, it must look to you like some of the greatest we've ever experienced.
I don't know whether it's the greatest we've ever experienced. Look, Bitcoin is like anything else. It's worth what people are willing to pay for it. And right now, people are willing to pay, I haven't looked in the last 5 minutes, so it could have varied 10, but let's say they're willing to pay 17,000. That's what it's worth. The tulips were worth when people were paying that for them. Gold is what it's worth. What I do know about Bitcoin is the concept that it could ever be a medium of exchange has been eliminated because you can't do transactions, particularly retail transactions, with something with this kind of volatility. But if people think Bitcoin is worth 17,000, that's what it's worth today.
Last thing on this before we move on, there are people who want to hold Bitcoin because they're as critical of the Fed and other central banks as you are. So if they agree with your philosophy that the central banks are screwing this up, then what would be a better way to express that than holding something like Bitcoin?
That's an excellent question. I think at some point figure out when this is going to end and then either get out or go short. Because, by the way, when this ends, and it will, I'm talking about this monetary radicalism period we're in, Bitcoin will probably go down with the rest of the stuff.
How has the year been for you?
I would have to say it's probably the worst year I've had relative to the set of opportunities out there I can ever recall. I mean, for me, 1997 was close, but
that was an Asian financial crisis.
Well, that was a pretty good opportunity. I have done very well in stocks. I've really, really mistraded macro. It's going to be, if it was up to macro, I'd have my first down year, but stocks have bailed me out, so
wow.
Barring a miracle, that's not going to happen. But
you're not up 30%.
I'm not up anywhere near 30%. I'm not up double digits. You know, I'm having, again, relative to the opportunity set, a terrible year. It's going to be my first, barring a miracle, it's going to be my first down year in currencies ever.
I've pointed out repeatedly the fact that the U.S. dollar is so weak. Would that be one example, or are we talking about other things?
No, it's just me over trading and being cold at the wrong time. And since it's been my bread and butter for years, I'd say over allocating exposure there relative to equities. Somebody on your network said a week ago, all you had to do this year was roll out of bed and you're going to be up 20 or 30%. Apparently, I got out of the wrong side of bed.
Wow, a big admission from him there on the performance front.
So self-deprecating. It's always a pleasure to hear from Mr.
By connecting
Druckenmiller.
any U.S. bank account, it makes it really easy, and then we do secure storage, and we also let merchants accept Bitcoin.
What's coming next for Coinbase? What have you been doing here at the conference? Tell me more about your future plans.
Yeah, so we've just been meeting people face-to-face. Trust is a very important thing in Bitcoin, so we want to be able to put a face to the name and let people know that we're real people behind this. And then, you know, what's coming next for Coinbase is we're want to accept more payment options, make it even easier, turn on instant buys, and we just raised a bunch of money. We announced the largest fundraise in Bitcoin last week, $5 million from Union Square Ventures, and so that allowed us to really raise the amount that we can sell in Bitcoin every day.
Okay, so, and are you going to be adding new features with that as well? Are you hiring new people?
Yeah, we're building out our team quite quickly and interviewing 2 or 3 people every day. So we're trying to find great software engineers, designers, business development people, compliance officers, all people who could work locally in San Francisco in our office.
How did you get the idea for Coinbase? Like, tell me about that.
Well, I was working at Airbnb about 2 years ago, and I
know Airbnb. Yeah.
Great. Yeah, it's a great company, and we were moving money all over the world, and I was doing software engineering for them, and so it turned out that that's a very difficult and time-consuming process with lots of fees all over the place. And so when I read the paper on Bitcoin, I realized this was going to be a big thing. It's going to be a fast, cheap payment network for the whole world.
And when was that?
This was about 2 years ago. And so I started working on a prototype, and basically the idea of Coinbase was just that if this new protocol can become easy to use, it's a huge idea. And that's what's happening. So
yeah, it would be cool if Airbnb would integrate Bitcoin with their services.
Yeah, it would make the nice close the loop here on the story. And
I bet they're sad they lost you.
Hopefully, and I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they start accepting it in the next year here. So
that sounds great. I know.